Okay, YouTubers, another quick game of Interplanetary I Spy going on here. Back to Mars, back to Gale Crater, and we're moving away from the shipwrecks and larger objects that I've been covering recently, and we're going right back here to Sol 529, which would have been in the first year that Curiosity was up there on Mars in Gale Crater. And there's this image. This is one I was looking at just the other day, and I thought, wow, there's some cool stuff in here. Now, this image was actually brought to my attention by a subscriber who sent in, via one of my websites, sent in a link to this image with some kind of little circles pointing out various things on here. And unfortunately, because my email was over full at the time, I had to delete a load of stuff, and I'd lost the email that the person sent me. So if you are this person who sent this image into me from Sol 529, which had 3 circles here, one here, and another one here. It had 3 circles on it, marking where these things were. If you're that person, please let me know, and I will put a full credit to you in the description, okay? So I'm sorry about that, but I do get sent a hell of a lot of stuff, and unfortunately my email gets over full because people are sending in all these images, and my limit, if it goes above a certain limit, it will delete stuff. So I do apologise about that, but let's crack on with it. There's also this image, which is brought to my attention by another channel, and I'll go into that in a minute. And we're also going to be having another quick look at some of these videos I've done before. Gods of Mars Part 2, Martian Statue Art Collection, and Alien Head Found on Mars, because there's some real similarities here to what we're going to be looking at today. And I'm quite excited by this because it kind of confirms what I've been seeing in other images, and when you get similar things, it's good because it means that they're less likely to be a coincidence and just pareidolia, as people at NASA and the media keep saying, which is actually a load of intellectual dog toffee as far as I'm concerned. There is pareidolia, yes, okay, there is patternicity, yes, we do see things in rocks, yes we do, we see things in clouds, of course we do. But when you actually start to work out all the sizes and comparisons of these things and start looking at them in greater detail, you will begin to realise that a lot of them are actually real statues and real skulls and real things. They're not just rocks that look a bit like this or like that. There's too many coincidences now, and most of these are in the sort of fairly small area of a couple of square kilometres that the rover's driven around in the last few years. So let's crack on with it. Let me show this. This is one of the images. Now there's a little rocky outcrop here with what looks like a statue here. It's a bit unclear, and unfortunately it's in shadow. But you can just make it out there. It is 2 eyes and a nose, okay? And in here, this was crazy. Now, the person who sent me this image pointed out this rather strange thing at the bottom here and said it was like C-3PO or R2-D2, I think he called it. He or she. And it does look kind of weird, and I can see why. He's got this kind of weird shape to it. There's also a couple of things here. He pointed out one of these things here, and also this thing here. So without further ado, I'll show you the folder I've got. Now, I've already done some clips, and I've done some composite images with the original clip and the actual enhanced clip overlaid onto it to save time. All right? And this is one of them. This is the one at the bottom of the image, right at the bottom, and you've got this thing here. Now, the person who sent this in said it looked like R2-D2. And I thought, yeah, it kind of does. This kind of looks like the leg and the sort of dome shape there. But then I thought, well, hang on a minute. This thing's got 2 eyes, and it's got a kind of a weird-looking nose shape thing here, just here, and what looks like a mouth. And is that the chin? And some kind of hat is wearing. I don't know. It's weird. It kind of reminds me of some of those old carvings or paintings that you might see done back in the Renaissance period, or early Renaissance, or perhaps even earlier than that. We're talking 14th, 15th century medieval art from Europe, where they painted sort of poor people, and they often looked kind of a bit out of proportion. The facial proportions weren't always quite right, and the eyes were too far apart, and they often had very big heads and big mouths and stuff like that. I mean, don't know, really odd. I mean, I put it's from Sol 529. There's the information there. There's the enhanced clip. What can I say? Very odd. I'll come back to that because we've got a few things to go through here. I'll come back to that in a bit, and I'll show you the clips I did of that. But as usual, links will be below, and all the main images will be at the end of the video, and you can go there and freeze frame and look at them properly and zoom in and do what you like, and take screenshots if you like. Okay. Right. So the other image. I'll go over that now, so I remember to credit for us. This was on one of the Facebook groups from Sol 562, and this is by the channel Terraform Mars, and this channel's done some good stuff actually in the recent months, and I saw this and I thought, wow, I didn't spot that one. I've been over these images before, of course, but you can't spot everything. And he's done a couple of little clips here. This is vague. Now, it's quite a long way off, and it's not very large. I'd say it's probably only about 5 inches tall, approximately. And but he's done a couple of enhancements here. He's got a brighter one here, and it actually helps if you sit back from the image a bit. You can see it better if you don't get too close. You can see the nose and 2 eyes and a mouth. It does look like a human head. It looks kind of better there. You can see it. Okay, so that was cool by Terraform Mars. There will be a link to Terraform Mars channel in the description. So full credit where credit is due there. So I thought that was cool. So I had a look myself, of course, and I took a clip and then did an enhancement. I really brightened it. It's unclear, but it does look to have human proportions. This rock, if it is a rock. You've got a mouth, you've got quite a long nose there, you've got 2 eyes, forehead, and there's one head going back into this pile of rubble here and crap, you know. I will do a couple of more enhancements of that and see if I can clean it up a bit. It's very dirty, kind of grungy image, this one. And as with a lot of these images, the puke filter has done its best to ruin a lot of the detail, which is especially when these images are compressed, the shadow detail is what's lost most. Now, when you downsize an image and compress it, what the program, the JPEG kind of program decides to do is decide what information to leave out of the image, and often that's the darkest bits of the image. This is why often you go into the shadowy areas and it looks really choppy and there's kind of bits missing. But you could see it in the raw image, actually. It's there. Once you know it's there, you can see those eyes and the nose and the mouth. It's vague, I do appreciate that. But it kind of helps if you see it from further back, like that. Okay? So there we have it. I will do more clips of that. So credit there to Terraform Mars for that one. Let's go back to the main image. Now, this main image here is crazy. And this is also not far from the Dingo Gap area. This is just probably less than 100 yards or 100 meters from the Dingo Gap. And there was lots of stuff at Dingo Gap, including statues, including building foundations and many other things, and all sorts of fragments and stuff like that. So that to me says that some of this may be related. And a lot of these buildings have statues either on them, on top of them, or in front of them before they were destroyed, okay? Which is why we're seeing so many statue heads in the area, which are probably the basic remnants of these temple areas with statues. So now the other couple of things in this image was this thing. I'm going to show you this now. This is tiny. I don't know if you can see it. Like a really small head here with 2 eyes and a nose. Now I appreciate that's vague. If you get too close, doesn't work because the image starts to break up. Okay, but I'll show you a clip of that anyway. I've done a little clip of it, and here we have it. Let's go back a bit, because if you get too close, it doesn't actually get any better. There it is. I've just enlarged this. This hasn't been enhanced, this background image here. That's just a clip that's been enlarged. And you can see what looks like a little monkey head or something. Or even a possible humanoid. And when you flip it, I've rotated it round to the right here and brightened it right up, added a bit of contrast and colour corrected it so it's gone a little bit blue. And you can see it's very vague, I appreciate, because it is really quite tiny. This thing's probably only about 1 inch in size. And you've got 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth with lip detail, and a possible big ear sticking out here, and a darker area here which looks like it might be hair, or who knows. Very strange. Now, is this a statue? Is it mummified, or what is it? It's getting very hard to tell here. There's not really enough detail to determine either way. The symmetry in the image is actually the facial symmetry is very good. Unlike that other thing I showed you a minute ago, which looks very old-fashioned, kind of like an old-fashioned statue that you might see, or an old-fashioned image of a person that you might see done in the 14th century or something like that on Earth. What happened was art actually devolved in many countries. You look at ancient art in, say, places like ancient Greece and ancient Egypt. They had a very high level of art. Their statues and artwork was extremely fine, and the facial symmetry is there, and you've got very, very fine facial symmetry. And this is usually a sign of high art, like you would get in ancient Greece or whatever, or Greco-Roman. The Romans, of course, copied all this, and I actually think it was probably the ancient Egyptians that were the first really high artists, who did the first really, really high quality statue work. And it was later civilizations like the Greeks and then the Romans that copied them. And what you have is very fine proportions, like you have here. Now, I'm not saying this is a statue. It may actually be a monkey, a dead monkey head. I mean, why would a head just be lying there? I don't know. It could just be a rock that happens to look like one, but if you look at it, it's very, very well proportioned. Indeed. And there's also this guy, which is very odd. Now, the person who sent this in to me initially put a circle around this, so I wasn't getting it at all. It said, just said head or something. I think it said here, head. And I was like, well, I'm not getting it. And I left the folder, and I forgot about the email for about a week or two, and I was doing some other work, and then I came back to it, came back to the image. I stumbled on the folder again, came back to the image. I thought, well, actually, I was looking at it the wrong way round. I was thinking this was the front of the head and that was the kind of back of the head. But actually this is a mouth and that's a nose and that looks like an eye. So I was kind of looking at it the wrong way. So I flipped it round and there we have it. Then it suddenly made sense. I just added a bit of contrast, brightened it right up, like I did with the others, just added a bit of colour correction. It's gone a bit blue. And you can see a big nose, a mouth with some odd details like teeth here and maybe a moustache here, and a sort of upper lip, it's kind of lower lip there. I'm not really sure. It could be broken, partially broken. Quite a clear eye and a very odd cone-shaped hat or helmet with some strange detail on the front, like a kind of snake-like thing. In fact, you can see the snake-like thing slightly better on the smaller bit there. See that sticking up there, like you might get on an Egyptian sort of statue with a sort of snake symbol on the forehead. Is that what we're looking at? Don't know, but it does look like a statue, and it's very different from the others in style. Some of the similarities are there. I mean, the cone head thing is a theme, that's for sure. The great big long nose is not so much of a theme. I mean, I mean, it's weird. It kind of looks like one of those old cartoon characters or something from the 1940s or 50s. I'm not sure what to make of it. I really am not sure. I mean, it's the same Sol 529. I mean, all these things are literally right next to each other. And then there was another thing which the person who sent this in didn't spot. And I only spotted this because it's similar to something I've found before in a completely different area of Mars. Now, this is pretty vague, and it doesn't quite make visual sense when you look at it to start with. It didn't to me, and I looked at it and I thought, well, hang on a minute, that reminds me of something. Now, here's the possible anomaly here. Now, this may not be what I think it is, but it may be. When you see the other similar thing, it might trigger something. Now, to me, that looks like a nose with two eyes and a very large mouth here. This is the area between the nose and the mouth, okay? Which, in humans, is very small. But in some apes, like orangutans, it's very large. Now, before I go any further, let me show you this other one, and it might make more sense to you, because it may be a little bit clearer, okay? Now, in this video, alien head found on Mars, we have this thing. Now, this was taken by the Opportunity rover, which is thousands of miles away. The Curiosity rover is a Gale crater. The Opportunity was, oh yes, it was Endeavour crater, of course. But this was photographed a while back by the Opportunity rover, thousands of miles away, as I said. What are the chances of a very similar thing with the same sort of shaped mouth and morphology being thousands of miles away on the same planet? And what are the chances of them both being pareidolia when they're very, very similar? Let's check that out again. Let's compare it. Two eyes, nose, and a very big maxilla, which is that part of your jaw below the nose, where your top teeth are. Okay, look at that. Mouth, maxilla, nose, eye socket, and what looks like an eye pupil still in it, which is insane detail if that's what it is. You can see that in the raw image there. See that dot? In fact, that's what drew me to it initially. But it is vague, and it's also very small, and is partially obscured by some rocks in front, unfortunately. So I'm not going to bet my entire life savings on that one, because it is a bit vague. But look at the similarities. Mouth, large maxilla, quite a small nose, and two sort of eyes there, right? Let me play that through a bit. I mean, that was pretty cool, I thought. The fact that it looks very similar to something else, so which means this may well be real after all. I doubted this find. But the fact that it was near this rather strange shell, which looks like a seashell here, and also it was right by what I think is one of the most astonishing finds on Mars, which is something I found. I'll let that play through a little bit. That should play through now. And it gets kind of clearer when you see the enhancement. You can see the mouth, you can see the detail there, you see the nose and the eyes quite well. I know it's a bit vague, but it's there. But it was right next to this guy, which is one of my favourite finds of all time, which is what I just called the Martian alien mummy or alien head found on Mars. There'll be a link to this at the end of the video. If you haven't seen this already, you can click straight on it. And the initial video I did, I just didn't colour it. I don't know why I didn't. I just kind of enhanced it. I didn't colour it. I just brightened it up and changed the contrast. But then later, I think I saw someone else did a version of it, who copied it basically, and they sort of coloured the face in, like I've done here, and it just makes it much clearer. It's not that colour, but it does help you see the difference between the face and the hair and the ear and the earring and the mouth and the teeth. It just makes it stand out better, I think, and I've really brightened it a lot more. It may have even been Terraform Mars that did that, I think, actually. I'm not sure who did it now, initially. And I thought, yeah, I'll do that. So I drew around the face and then just changed the colour, just to bring out the detail. And there's some astonishing eye detail in there. Unbelievable. Now, that's probably mummified. And I still don't know why they mummify them and stick them upright in the sand like this. There's probably a body beneath this, but they may have buried people stood up, for all we know. And there may be some kind of custom there, or it may have been some kind of torture like they used to do in World War II, where people were buried in the sand and then died of exposure or whatever, or eaten by ants or termites or whatever. Who knows? But this could be a statue, but if you look at the hair detail, it looks like hair to me. This is fuzzy kind of hair up here. That isn't carved. You can't carve hair like that. So I'm guessing that's probably an actual mummified head, not a statue like we're looking at today. So that's it, really. I mean, we have the medieval looking R2D2 shaped object, which is just there. You have that kind of monkey head here, that small little monkey head here, and a sort of carved head here, lying on its back, with the sort of helmet or hat on, and a big sort of long nose. I mean, I've got the main folder here. Let me quickly show you some of the clips. I won't go through all of them because it's just some of these are probably better quality because they're the original clips that I've done. Yeah, you can actually see quite clearly that from this distance. So you're looking from here to here, you can actually see that face better. Let's find the bitmap. Yeah, let's go in with the bitmap because it's probably a bit sharper. But yeah, I mean I will try and find a comparison to this. This just looks like something from a medieval painting or a medieval carving from Earth, you know, in Europe, you know. Very, very familiar looking. But I may have got this wrong. These may not be eyes at all. These may be bolts, and this may be a mechanical object because it's got this kind of dome to it, and it's very interesting. I may be looking at it in a completely different and wrong way. I can't claim to get everything right here. No one's got a 100% track record when it comes to Mars. I mean, nobody, not even some of the top people, you know, like Richard Hoagland or people like that. I mean, they've made mistakes, and we've all made mistakes, some more than others. But I mean, is that a statue, or is it some kind of mechanical object that I'm just looking at wrong? Could these be bolts, perhaps? Could that be some kind of mechanical thing? I don't know. But there's a lot in this area, and I've got a feeling there's probably going to be some more found if people start looking at these two souls again. Because there's loads of little things in here, and if you look at the raw image, even you start looking at some of these other things and think, well, that kind of looks a bit like a part of a statue there, and you start thinking, well, what about everything else? You know, is this all just rock? Most of it is. Most of it is, of course, but some of it looks like it's been intelligently carved. So there we are. There will be clips coming up in a minute. I'll show you that one again very quickly. It doesn't look great at this size. What I'll do is I'll reduce the size of that and put it at the end so you can see it at its ideal distance. And with this guy as well, if you get too close to this one, you don't really see any detail. It kind of gets a bit blurry, and you can see the shapes pretty well, but too big doesn't actually help. But that kind of reminded me of some French kind of cartoon character or something from the 20th century or 19th century. I can't remember who. There's actually a famous Frenchman who had a nose like that, who was famous in World War II. I think his name was... Oh, he was a famous general. Oh, God, I can't think of it now. I'll find a clip. I'll find a clip and put it in at the end. Okay, so there we have it. Multiple stuff here. The question is, are they all carved, or are some of these actual specimens that have been mummified or solidified in clay? as I've suggested before, and other people have. So here's the original thing I was sent in. So if you sent this in to me, let me know. You may recognise your own work here, where you've actually put an R2-D2 thing here, a little circle, and a small head here, and a large head here. But of course, the other thing I spotted was just here, and there may be other stuff in here as well. I mean, that looks pretty weird. What's going on there? It's just the end of that. But I mean, as always within these areas, if there's multiple things, then there's probably more multiple things that we haven't yet seen. So it's always worth going over some of these older sols from the first year or two that they were up on Mars with the Curiosity. And the same goes for the Opportunity, although there's a lot less to see in those images because it's a lot more barren in that part of Mars, near Endeavour Crater. Whereas the Curiosity kind of struck gold, really, I think, and almost straight away we started seeing skulls and bones and statues and broken parts of walls and buildings and that kind of thing, almost straight away. So still a plethora of things to discover in this treasure trove of a crater full of wonderful goodies for us armchair archaeologists to look at and pontificate over. Whilst NASA pretend they're not there, we can work out what they are and do the work for them. And when it all comes out into the main public and out into the open, and people start to realise what we found, then they will be left behind and serve them right for being intellectually retarded when it comes to admitting the truth about these things. I don't think it's their fault. I think they have their hands tied. Certainly a lot of people at NASA, I think, must be very frustrated by this, and I would be. I would be pulling my hair out if it was me. Absolutely pulling my hair out. And there are so many statues now. I mean, there's a couple in this video here. This is a very clear one of my favourites. This one is the one I spoke about on Ancient Aliens, which is still... Now, this isn't far from where we are, okay? This is literally only 50 yards away from where we are today, looking at in those images. So this is this is right on the edge of this temple at Dingo Gap. I call it the temple, and there are multiple statues along here, and this is one that is sticking out of the sand. There's probably a load more buried there. It needs to be dug. This is literally not far away from where we are, right near the Dingo Gap here. Not far at all. The Dingo Gap is over to the right here and behind. Okay, and this adds further credence to my theory that there was a temple in the area, and there may also be sacred sort of burial tombs and stuff like that. But there we have it. More links coming up now in about 30 seconds. Thanks for watching, everybody. Please share on social media and give the thumbs up. I will see you soon.